Hi friends, welcome back to Learning Space. So this is UPSC IAS Prelims 2019 revision modules pertaining to current affairs, and we are deliberating the module number 16 of art and culture. And what is the topic for the day? The very first topic is going to be cultural festivals. So yes, starting from certain important cultural festivals pertaining to some of the states. And with regard to northeastern states, we have the festivals of Hornbill Festival and Sangai tourism. And then with regard to Telangana, we have the important festivals of Sammaka Saralama and Batukamma. And then we have some other tribal festivals. For example, we have Banishedbut Fair of Rajasthan, we have Sarhul Festival of Jharkhand, and finally we have a national tribal festival. So that is Adi Mahotsav. So these are the important cultural festivals which we are going to take up for the day. And let us start with the Hornbill Festival. So when you talk about Hornbill Festival, the naming itself is quite important because it is named after a bird, right? So the naming is quite important here. So this is one of the important tribal festival that you have with regard to the state of Nagaland. So most importantly, what is important here is this entire festival coincides with the formation day of Nagaland. So you need to understand about the terminology of formation day of Nagaland, right? So the formation day, it actually falls on the December 1st of 1963. So when you look at the year here, it is actually 1963. We have already dealt about the same in polity classes as well. So here the Nagaland state was formed as the 16th state of India. It was carved out of the state of Assam. So the year 1963 says that this particular 2018 year is actually the 55th statehood year for Nagaland. So this particular Hornbill Festival gains further importance because of that. So please understand the further importance with regard to Hornbill Festival. So it is celebrated every year. Please understand it is an annual festival which is celebrated in the first week of December. So it is actually celebrated in a place called Naga Heritage Village, which is present around 12 kilometers from the capital city of Kohima. So what are the important cultural activities which take place during the Hornbill Festival? Which you need to understand, basically this Hornbill Festival is concentrated upon the entertainment of people in general. So it is actually a crowd puller wherein a lot of people from all across the world, from all the places of India, they throng to Nagaland. So this is basically oriented towards entertainment. So when you mean entertainment, you are going to have a lot of drumming sequences of the native people of Nagaland. There is going to be a lot of dancing, singing and so on. So it is actually a festival of merrymaking. And then the other important activities pertaining to the Nagaland festival is that you have certain important festivities of the Hornbill Festival like the chili eating contest. So you have one important chili which is called as the Bhoot Jolakya. So the Bhoot Jolakya is actually one of the hottest varieties of chili that you can find in India, and this chili eating contest itself is proving to be an important activity which takes place during the Hornbill Festival. Apart from the chili eating contest, you also have one very important festivity for the youth in general, which is the very famous Metal and Rock Festival, which is basically a musical rock festival. It is wherein a lot of bands from all across the India, the best bands of India, they come to the state of Nagaland and they perform. So it is basically a famous rock and metal festival. After that, one another important event is you have the most famous Kohima Night Bazaar. So here you have some food stalls that is installed. Also apart from that, some handicraft item of the general place of Nagaland is also portrayed in that particular night bazaar. So this is it about the Hornbill Festival, and now let us move on to the next important northeastern festival, which is the Sangai Tourism Festival. So here the naming is again important. Every year the state of Manipur celebrates the Manipur Sangai Festival. So the name again suggests that it is going to be named after one particular animal, and the animal is nothing but the state animal of Manipur. So Sangai is actually a deer, a brow-antlered deer. So this antler is quite unique with regard to the Sangai deer, and this particular deer is actually the state animal of Manipur. So this is an endemic species of Manipur. It is an endangered species, please remember that. The festival is labelled as the grandest festival of the state, and it promotes the cultural activities. It promotes the cultural extravaganza of the state of Manipur, and it actually tries to portray the tourism potential of the state in the means of arts and culture, handloom, cuisine, etc. So again, as I have told you, the naming is important. When you talk about naming, as I have mentioned, this particular state animal, Sangai, is actually an endemic species to Manipur. It is an endangered species. Also, this brow-antlered deer or the dancing deer, it is actually present in the habitat is quite important. The habitat of the deer is actually the Cable Lamjao National Park, which is present in the Loktak Lake. So, it is actually the floating national park of India, and it is present in the Loktak Lake. And again, when you take Loktak Lake, you have one interesting biomass present there, which is called as Fumdis. So, you have the Fumdis in the Loktak Lake, which proves to be the natural habitat for with regard to this particular deer. So, you have the Cable Lamjao National Park. And what are Fumdis? Fumdis are nothing but heterogeneous masses of vegetation, soil, organic matter at various stages of decomposition. So, this entire floating national park is actually made up of some congregations of heterogeneous masses, which is actually Fumdis. And now this Fumdis, they are also used as construction material with regard to the people of the state. And it is also used as means of livelihood, even it is used for construction materials. So, please remember that point as well. And now let us move on to the focus areas for art and culture with regard to the Sangai Tourism Festival. So, you have certain cultural highlights which is getting portrayed, you have some sort of sports highlights. So, with regard to the cultural highlight, take a look at that. We have dealt about most of these topics already with regard to the static modules of art and culture. Take for example, the legendary Ras Leela dance form. Here, this particular Ras Leela is actually the theme behind Manipuri dance form. Manipuri dance itself is actually based upon the ideas of Ras Leela dances or Ras Leela concept. So, what is this concept of Ras Leela? When you take the concept of Ras Leela, it is actually the love and the emotions of the Radha and Krishna. So, it is actually trying to portray the story of Krishna and especially what he does with regard to the other gopis and Radha. And bamboo dance. So, you have the bamboo dance which is very similar to the Chera dance. It is very similar to the Chera dance of Mizoram. So, what is this Chera dance? Again, you may have a question. So, this Chera dance, please remember, we have already dealt in the static module. I am just reiterating the same concept again for you. So, you have some horizontally placed bamboo sticks wherein the men folk, they actually hold this particular bamboo stick on either ends, and the women, they jump across this particular bamboo stick. So, this basically alternative stepping in and stepping out of the bamboo stick produces a rhythmic dance movement. So, this is it about bamboo dance, and this entire rhythmic stepping in and stepping out by the women folk, it actually represents the natural flow, the natural movement which you can observe with regard to nature. For example, it will actually resemble the swaying of trees, it will resemble the movement of birds. So, this is how the dance itself is very much in alignment with the natural movement which you can observe in the mother nature. So, that is the uniqueness with regard to the bamboo dance. So, this bamboo dance which you have in Manipur is very similar to the Chera dance of Mizoram. And Maibi dance. So, who are the Maibis and the Maibas? We have already dealt. The Maibis and the Maibas are no one but the priest and the priestesses. So, they actually dance in such a way so as to portray the godly divine aspects. So, they actually portray the divine aspects, the divine stories in the form of Manipuri dance form. So, that is it about the Maibi dance, which we will analyze them individually as well, and Pangcholam. So, Pangcholam, Kartal Cholam, they are nothing but some form of musical instruments. They are percussionary instruments which is accompanied with your Manipuri dance form. Finally, you have Sankirtana. So, Sankirtana is nothing but singing the Kirtans in praise of Lord Krishna. So, it is basically attached to a Vaishnavite movement, and please remember, this Sankirtana is singing in praise of Lord Krishna in general. And sports highlights. If you take sports highlight, one sport or one martial art form is Tang Ta. So we have already dealt about Tang Ta, but the rest of the three things, the rest of the three sports, we have not dealt with regard to our static modules. So we'll be deliberating about that as well. So let us move on to the module, which is the Manipuri dance. Let us now analyze about the each and individual aspects with regard to Manipuri dance, which forms to be an important part of the Sangay Tourism Festival. So this particular Manipuri dance, it is particularly well known for its Hindu Vaishnavism themes. I've already mentioned to you, the theme of the Manipuri dance is going to be essentially Ras Leela concept, which is going to be the drama, the love-inspired dance drama of Radha and Krishna. So it is going to be Vaishnavism oriented. And however, the dance also portrays some themes related to Shaivism and Shaktism as well. Now, in the modern times, this Manipuri dance got further impetus, got a further push because of Rabindranath Tagore, who introduced it into Shantiniketan. So, one important festival wherein you perform this Manipuri dance form is the Lai Haroba festival. So, Lai Haroba, please understand, it is one of the main festival which is still performed in Manipur, and it is having its roots in the pre-Vaishnavic period. And you have the performances of Maibas and Maibis. They reenact the entire story. So they reenact the story of the divine love, of the themes of the creation of the world. It is basically some form of divine godly stories, which is reenacted by the Maibas and the Maibis. And now let us further understand about the Pang and the Kartal Cholam. So I have already mentioned to you, this Pang and Kartal Cholam, they are some form of percussionary musical instrument which accompany your Manipuri dance form. So with the arrival of Vaishnavism, you had some new compositions which is based upon the life stories of Radha and Krishna, which you call it to be Ras Leela theme. And for this entire depiction of the Manipuri dance form, you have one particular musical instrument which is the Pang Cholam and the Kartal Cholam. So please understand that. Moving on to the next important aspect with regard to Sangay Tourism Festival, you have the Nata Sankirtana. So I have mentioned to you, this is a ritual singing, drumming and dancing art form of Manipur. So it is actually having its influence, or you can say it is having its roots to the Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is actually given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has got a huge influence for the development of Sankirtana. And with regard to Sankirtana, if you take, we have already mentioned in one of the miscellaneous module that this is one of the UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage, and this is a part of this particular list. So please remember this particular point with regard to Sankirtana. It has become a part of UNESCO's cultural heritage list as well. And now moving on to the sports of Manipur. So when you talk about the sport, the very first sport that we are taking up is Sagol Kangche. So please remember the names. We are just taking up 4 important sports. The very first sport is going to be Sagol Kangche. So this is closely known as the Manipuri form of polo. So here it is just the basic polo activity. It is basically a polo play, and here is where the players are mounted upon some form of horses, Manipuri pony or Manipuri horses. So on the top of the horses they play the polo. And then when you take Yubilappi, the name is actually one form of the technique of rugby. So it is basically, this game is actually a technique of rugby, and you actually play it not with a ball but you play it with a coconut. So this particular game is also known as, it literally means coconut snatching. So you have to snatch this coconut from one player. So this is it about the rugby, a local form of rugby which is played in Manipur. And then moving on to Tang Ta. So Tang Ta is actually an exclusive martial art form of Manipur. So it is a spear and sword martial art, and here Tang means sword and Ta means spear. So it is actually a sword and spear martial art form. So you actually engage in a mock combat. Please understand, it is a mock fight sequence. It is a mock combat wherein performers, they leap to attack and defend, but it is all a very much a mock martial art form. So previously it was used in the form of a defense equipment, in the form of a defense to protect themselves, but right now it is more of a performance based martial art form. And then you have Mukna Kangje. So Mukna Kangje is actually a game which combines the technique of wrestling and hockey. So here, interestingly, they actually try to play the hockey by means of wrestling with the players. So they actually wrestle, they indulge in a mock fighting, and thereby they play the game of hockey. So 4 sports we have actually dealt about in this particular topic. So please remember all the 4 sports. And now let us move on to Sarhul Festival. So this particular festival, it is actually taking place in the state of Jharkhand. It is a tribal festival. So when we are talking about tribal festival, please take extra attention about the point, because it might be more important with regard to UPSC. Sarhul, it actually means worship of trees. So this festival is very closely attached to nature. It is very closely attached to nature. In fact, the worship itself is actually all around or circulating around a tree. The tree is nothing but the sal tree. So it is celebrated by the tribes like Oran, Munda, Santal and the Ho tribes of the Jharkhand region. So this particular festival is basically revolving around the festivities and the worship of the nature, and the tribes are given here. So it is basically around the Jharkhand region. It is celebrated mostly in the starting of the spring season. So please remember that point. And now let us move on to the next important tribal festival, which is the Banishedbut Festival. So Banishedbut Festival is a festival of the Bhil tribe. So Bhil tribe of Rajasthan state, that is who actually take part in the Banishedbut Festival. So this is celebrated in the month of January and February by the people of the Bhil tribes. So again, the tribe is quite important here. If you take the Bhil tribe, they are living in the regions of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. So there, that is the entire states of Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, they take part in the Banishedbut Festival. If you take the entire congregation, more than half of the entire congregation is going to be the Bhil tribes. And now moving on to Adi Mahotsav. So this Adi Mahotsav is actually a national tribal festival. Whatever we have seen till now, there are some of the festivals, cultural festivals, there are some of the tribal festivals which take place within one particular state alone, right? But this particular Adi Mahotsav is a national tribal festival. It has got the stamp of Indian government itself. It is organized actually by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs in association with the Ministry of Culture and TriFed. So it is having the stamp of Government of India. So it is a celebration of the entire tribes of India, their culture, their craft, their cuisine, their commerce, everything is given much of an importance with regard to Adi Mahotsav. The theme of each and every Adi Mahotsav is important. With regard to the 4th edition of Adi Mahotsav, the theme is actually a celebration of the spirit of the tribal culture, their craft, cuisine and commerce. And now let us understand about a short description of the festival. So understand, this entire festival, Adi Mahotsav, is to portray and celebrate the tribal culture which is present in India. So they are trying to market the tribal culture. It is trying to market the tribal culture. It is trying to portray the tribal culture to the entire world. So the tribal culture, when you talk about that, what is important? The values, the natural simplicity of the Adivasi way of living, that gives a timeless appeal to their products. So this is the crux, this is the basic philosophy, this is the basic ideology behind conducting one form of tribal festival. So the Mahotsav, it actually comprises a display of a variety of tribal products. In the regions of art and craft, you have their own tribal product. In medicine, you have a set of tribal product, and in their own cuisine, there is a difference. So all this is actually portrayed in the Adi Mahotsav. Further, steps towards digitization is also taking place, wherein they are actually trying to sell some of the tribal goods through online shopping sites. So that is again an interesting viewpoint with regard to Adi Mahotsav, because if more and more digitization will actually try to preserve and conserve their own culture. So this form of digitization in the form of selling the goods through online retailers will actually fortify their culture even better. And now let us move on to the next important cultural festival, which is the Sammaka Saralama Jatra. So what is important here is, again, this is a tribal festival. Sammaka Saralama Jatra, which is actually taking place in the Medaram village of the state of Telangana, is actually a tribal festival. Please remember that. It is also known by one another name, which is the Medaram Jatra. So it is considered to be Asia's largest biennial tribal affair. What do you mean by biennial? Biennial means they take place every other year. That is once in 2 years. So this is a biennial festival, please remember that. And this tribal festival is actually commemorating the event of, or the bravery, the courage of 2 women. The women are Sammaka and her daughter Saralama. What did they do so as to celebrate them? That you need to understand. So they fought the Kakatiya kings. And why do they have to fight? That is again another point. They have to fight because you have to relook, or you have to take a relook towards the history. In history, what happened was, the Kakatiya kings, there was a huge drought during that particular period, and in spite of the drought, the Kakatiya kings, they actually demanded a huge cess from the tribal people. They did not take care of the drought conditions, but they actually demanded for more and more cess. Now this was what provoked the daughter and the mother, and they fought against the unrelenting kings, and what happened was, they were eventually taken down during that particular war. They were killed during that particular war, which was waged against the tribals. And this is why the tribals, even till now, they commemorate and they celebrate and they pay their obeisance to these particular brave women. And even ever since, the tribals gather to pay their obeisance. And the tribals, they gather here from different parts of the country, starting from Telangana, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and so on. So it is actually a congregation of the tribals to celebrate or to commemorate the bravery of the 2 brave women, the Sammaka and Saralama. So let us move on to the next important festival. We have Batukamma festival. So when you take this particular festival, why is it in news? That you need to understand. Interestingly, the government of Telangana is actually trying to give a much greater push to this particular cultural festival. So that is why it has been in the news very recently. Also, for the very first time ever, the New South Wales Parliament in Sydney, Australia, celebrated this ethnic festival of Batukamma. So that is why it is actually in the focus of national media. Please take a note of that. Again, one another event which closely commemorated this was the Pochampalli handloom weavers. So they actually got a chance to promote their saris in this particular celebration. So 2 events we are actually seeing with regard to the Batukamma festival being portrayed or being present, being celebrated in the New South Wales Parliament. What are those 2 events? One is, what is this Batukamma festival? The second is about the Pochampalli saris. So let us understand about the event. First of all, about Batukamma. What is this festival all about? Now understand, Batukamma is a beautiful flower stack, and here you have a gopuram like a flower stack, and here they arrange the flowers in a concentric layer, so that this concentric layers, they are arranged in the shape of a temple gopuram. So this entire stacking of the flowers is a very beautiful arrangement, and this is the Batukamma that they are celebrating about. So Batukamma, it literally represents the cultural spirit of Telangana. Please understand, it is actually representing the composite culture of Telangana. It is actually a very big festival in Telangana. Batukamma literally means Mother Goddess come alive. Batuku meaning come alive. So please understand, Batukamma literally means Mother Goddess come alive. This is a colorful floral festival of the Telangana, and usually this is celebrated at the end of monsoon. Why is it celebrated at the end of monsoon? You need to take a note of that as well. What happens is, by the end of monsoon, you will be having a good amount of wild flowers that has actually grown. So you have a connection of water, which is the monsoon. So by the means of water, you have a good amount of flowers and a good amount of harvest which takes place in the earth. So you have a connection with the earth. And finally, all this has been taken by the humans out of love. So you have a human love concept attached to it. So these three concepts of how water, the earth and the human love is actually linked together, it is actually the uniqueness with regard to Batukamma festival. Now again, what happens is they will arrange this form of Batukamma, they will arrange this floral stack, and what they do is they give it back to the water. They will actually immerse the entire Batukamma back into a pond or a river, and this is how the link is made complete. So they will give it back to the water. Now what is important is the mythology or the folklore. The local people tell that these flowers are actually made up of some sort of medicinal values, so it finally purifies the water source. This is one folklore concept. The other important folklore concept is that usually it is the women who circle around the Batukamma. So what happens is the women, they circle around the Batukamma, and it is said that the young girls, they pray for good husbands and so on. So these are some of the folklore history which is attached to this particular festival. Not very important, but please try to understand the spirit of Telangana which is actually portrayed through the Batukamma festival. The final day of Batukamma is known as Pedda or Sadulla Batukamma, and it is mostly taking place during the times of Dashara. And about Pochampalli saris, what you need to understand is this art, it actually originated in the 18th century in one Pochampalli town of Telangana, and locally this weaving, this entire weaving of Pochampalli sari, it is called by different names, and it is also known as Chitku weaving or the Ikat style of weaving. So the Pochampalli Ikat saris, they also have the GI tag which is attached to it. So please understand, I am reiterating the concept of Batukamma here. Batukamma festival, it is actually a festival which celebrates the cultural spirit of Telangana. It actually celebrates the spirit of the women folk of Telangana. It is actually a festival of the women folk of Telangana. It actually celebrates the sisterhood aspect. Please understand the word is important. It actually celebrates the sisterhood aspect of the women. The women try to engage in the festival, they try to form the Batukamma, they try to arrange the flower stack, they actually go in circles around the Batukamma, and that is why we call it, it is essentially to be celebrating the sisterhood, the womanhood aspect of the Telangana women. Also, one another important aspect that is attached to the Batukamma festival is that the ecological spirit is celebrated. The ecology, that is celebrated, the earth is celebrated, the water is celebrated. They are given much of festive importance to that. So this is the cultural importance with regard to Batukamma festival. So please understand that. So the next important event is a very important historical event. It is going to be the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the formation of Azad Hind government in the presence of the Prime Minister. So the nation remembers Netaji once again. So let us analyze about this particular event. Actually, why is it in news? That is because Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji on 21st October of 2018 hoisted the national flag at Red Fort. You need to ask certain questions here. What is the significance of the date? Why 21st of October? And what is the significance of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose for this entire event? So that is another question. And the third question is, what is the Azad Hind government? So these are the three questions which we'll be answering in this entire issue. So first of all, let us club two questions. What is the significance of the date, and what is the significance about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose here? So first of all, this date is the date wherein Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose declared the formation of Azad Hind government. That is, he declared the formation of the Free Indian government, the first Indian government, in the Cathay Theatre of Singapore. So 21st October, that is the date when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose declared a free independent national government, that is in exile. So what is the difference we do not have this government in the native Indian soil. Rather, this Azad Hind government was declared in a government or in a soil which is very much foreign in nature. He declared it in the Cathay Theatre of Singapore. So, it is actually called as government in exile. So, please understand that point. Also, Netaji Bhavan in Kolkata, they actually commemorated this event by releasing certain black and white photographs of the same person, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So, let us understand about some of the salient points pertaining to the event. As I have mentioned to you, this is the date, October 21st is the date when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose proclaimed the Azad Hind government at Singapore's cinema theatre, which is the Cathay Cinema Theatre. And he is the head of the state of this provisional Indian government in exile. And what is important is this particular Azad Hind government, it was a part of the freedom movement which originated in 1940s outside India. And what is again important is here Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he allied with the Japanese. He allied with the Japanese so as to ouster the British from India. So, this was said to be an allying with the Axis powers. What is the Axis power here? So, with the World War II, you have this division of Axis power and Allied power, right? So, you have this Axis power which proves to be the Rome, Berlin, Tokyo axis. So, you have the Rome, Berlin, Tokyo axis, which is the countries of Italy, Germany and Japan. So, put together they try to fight against the British rule. So, they formed the Axis powers, and what Subhash Chandra Bose did was he allied with the Axis powers so as to ouster the British from India. So, this was the history behind the event, and what happened was we actually released a commemorative 75 rupee coin. We also have the Prime Minister hoisting the national flag on October 21st. Now, what is important here is the place. Usually or traditionally, Prime Minister hoists the national flag with regard to the Red Fort only on Independence Day. But this is where the uniqueness lies. Prime Minister on a different date hoisted the national flag on the Red Fort. So, this is the most unique point with regard to this entire event. Now, closely associated with the 75th anniversary of the Azad Hind government was the renaming of certain islands. The Prime Minister actually announced the renaming of 3 important islands in Andaman and Nicobar, and we have certain islands, for example, Ross Island, Neil Island and Havelock Island, which has actually been renamed. So, Ross Island was renamed as Subhash Chandra Bose Dweep. You have Neil Island getting renamed as Shahid Dweep. Havelock Island is actually renamed as Swaraj Dweep. So, please understand this renaming as well. So, why is this renaming all necessary? Now, this renaming again commemorates Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's visit to Andaman. So, why do we have to rename the islands in Andaman? That is because this is where, or you can say the Andaman place is where which has been first occupied by the Japanese along with the INA as its ally. So, what happened was they freed the Andaman Islands from the control of the British, and that is why Subhash Chandra Bose declared the Andaman to be the very first soil which got independence from the British rule. So, as per the thoughts of Subhash Chandra Bose, Andaman was the first Indian soil to have liberated from the British rule. So, please understand that. So, this renaming is very much in alignment with the thoughts of Subhash Chandra Bose. During the World War II, Japan occupied these islands as allies of INA. So, this was the soil which got liberated initially. Netaji on December 30th of 1943, he hoisted the tricolour for the very first time on the free Indian soil, which is the Andaman and the Nicobar, and thereby he also renamed them as Shahid Dweep and Swaraj Dweep. So, the Japanese, please understand, we have allied with the Japanese and thereby we have liberated the island. So, this is actually liberation from the British rule. And now, let us further reiterate the same points whichever we have dealt till now for your better understanding. The first point is about the Azad Hind government. Let us reiterate whatever we have studied. Subhash Chandra Bose, on the date of October 21, 1943, he established the Provisional Azad Hind government, and he was also the leader of this Provisional Indian government in exile. And here you need to remember one very important quote which was given by Subhash Chandra Bose: "Give me blood, I will give you freedom." So this was given to the members of the INA in Burma in the year of 1944. Now what you need to understand is, this entire Azad Hind government, or this entire Indian National Army, that was actually set up by means of the prisoners of war, by actually congregating, by actually collecting the prisoners of war. So this was a part of the freedom movement which took place outside the Indian soil, and what is very crucial is that it gave a further legitimacy to the Indian independence struggle. So the existence of an army, it gave very much more impetus. The existence of this entire provisional government gave a more legitimacy to the Indian independence struggle. Now you need to understand more about the Indian National Army as well. A quick glimpse about the Indian National Army. The first idea, the basic idea to actually conceptualize an army, that was actually given by Mohan Singh. So we are actually collecting the Indian prisoners of war and we are forming an army out of it, and this idea was actually that of Mohan Singh. And the Indian National Army was actually founded out of the prisoners of war of the British Indian Army who were actually captured by the Japanese. So they were actually Indians by birth, but they were captured as prisoners of war. Again, this idea of the prisoners of war, collecting them, making them into an army, that was actually conceptualized by Mohan Singh. One another important personnel who is actually attached to the initial formation of INA was Rash Behari Bose, and later on it was reconsolidated as an army by Subhash Chandra Bose. Again, if you take the Indian National Army, you have to give considerable amount of focus to the women's regiment, which is the Rani of Jhansi regiment. Who actually led the Rani of Jhansi regiment? It was none other than Lakshmi Sehgal. So please understand the importance of women who were given equal importance with regard to the Indian National Army. And now when you are talking about Indian National Army, you cannot neglect the INA trials. So what actually started as an army did not flourish much because of two factors, I would say. The first factor is that the Japanese with whom we have actually collated, they actually started ill-treating the INA soldiers. That is one point. How did they ill-treat? They actually denied giving much of the rations and food. They actually denied giving certain arms and ammunition. So all this was more of an ill-treatment which has been imposed to the Indian people. Again, the second important factor is that we were not given a considerable amount of numbers. We actually demanded an army of numbers of around 2 lakh Indian men. But what the Japanese eventually gave to us was a token force. So this actually demoralized the Indian army, and out of all these differences which erupted between us and the Japanese army, because of the retreat that was taken by the Japanese army, we could not make the INA into a well-flourished Indian army. And when you take the INA trials, what happened was, when the British, they later took them to India for punishing, there was a court-martial. And very important court-martial was the court-martial that was given to Colonel Prem Sehgal, Guru Baksh Singh Dhillon and Major General Shah Nawaz Khan. So what is the significance behind this particular INA trial is that the British intelligently, to stroke the sentiments of the Indian people, to further punish the Indians, they actually intelligently picked a Muslim, they picked a Sikh, they picked a Hindu. So Prem Sehgal was a Hindu, Shah Nawaz Khan was a Muslim and Guru Baksh Singh was a Sikh. So all the sentiments of the Indian people was completely curbed, was completely arrested, was completely hurt because of this INA trials. So that is why this INA trials is very important. Also, a huge support came forth from the Indians with regard to INA trials. You had an excellent battalion of lawyers who actually defended the INA trials. Starting from Tej Bahadur Sapru, you have Jawaharlal Nehru, you had Asaf Ali, and Bulabhai Desai, all of these people, they actually fought for, or they actually defended this particular INA trials. So with that issue, we are concluding the module for the day, and the next module, let us more analyze about some of the other important art and culture pertaining events. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.